A candid, hilarious, and heartbreaking memoir of resilience and redemption to add to your reading list is Hello, Molly by Molly Shannon. Molly Shannon is an actress and comedian you've probably seen on Saturday Night Live, the comedy Will and Grace, the TV series Enlightened, and many more. But Molly Shannon's life didn't start there. At age 4, Molly's world was shattered when she lost her mother, baby sister, and cousin in a car accident with her father at the wheel. In her memoir, Hello, Molly, Molly Shannon explores with both humor and candor her struggle to come to terms with the legacy of her father. Hello, Molly is also filled with behind-the-scenes stories involving everyone from Whitney Houston to Adam Sandler to Monica Lewinsky. It also spans Molly's time on Saturday Night Live, where she worked alongside Will Ferrell, Adam Sandler, Sherry O'Terry, Tracy Morgan, Jimmy Fallon, among many others. Hello, Molly is being published by Eco Books, and it's a candid, heartbreaking, and hilarious memoir you really don't want to miss. Welcome to The Reader's Couch, a podcast that brings you lively conversations with some of your favourite authors and bookish personalities. Over here, the couch is always booked, but I've moved some books to the side table and fluffed some cushions so I can welcome a guest or two to come lounge with us. Today on the couch, we have Peng Shepherd, and she's here to talk to me about her latest novel, The Cartographers, a novel about a disgraced cartographer who unravels a 30-year-old family secret hidden within the folds of a map. Stay tuned! An instant New York Times bestseller and Oprah Book Club selection, winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award for Fiction, finalist for the Penn Hemingway Award for Debut Novels, longlisted for the National Book Award for Fiction, a finalist for the Kirkus Prize for Fiction, shortlisted for the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize, longlisted for the Aspen Words Literary Prize, is none other than The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois by Honoré Fanone Jeffers. In the novel, we meet Ailey, and she's a descendant of enslaved Georgians and tenant farmers. She follows in her parents' footsteps and attends an HBCU, and we see her reckon with her ancestral trauma while growing up in the 1980s and 90s. And we also see her family's history from the centuries of the colonial slave trade through the Civil War to the present day. The Love Songs of W.E.B. Du Bois was first published in August 2021, but it's now being published in paperback by Harper Perennial, and it's a multi-generational epic you really don't want to miss. Hi readers, welcome again to The Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me is the best-selling author of the Book of M. But she's here to talk to me about her latest novel, The Cartographers. Please welcome to the couch, Peng Shepherd. Hey, Peng.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yay, I'm super excited to have you here. Can't wait to talk about The Cartographers. But before we get going, I want to gauge your excitement. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? How excited are you?
Oh, it is just, so excited. It's been such a whirlwind, and I'm so grateful for how well the book is doing. And every time one of your books comes out, you really hope that readers are going to love it, but you really have no idea until people start reading it. So it's been really wonderful to see that everybody is, I think, enjoying it, hopefully as much as I enjoyed writing it.
Yes, I love seeing the engagement as well. Now it's out there, so obviously I can discuss it with more readers. And I'm sure you're excited to see what they have to say, but I want readers to hear straight from you, Peng, before we even discuss anything. Tell us about your novel, The Cartographers, and what can readers expect going in when they pick up your book?
Sure. So The Cartographers is a mystery. It's a story about map making and family secrets. So it's got a little bit of dark academia vibes and a little bit of magic that happens. So things are a little bit mysterious and they do get a little strange. But it's about a woman named Nell. She's a young cartography scholar. And she discovers after the death of her brilliant but estranged father that a seemingly worthless map in his things actually contains a deadly mystery. And so she takes that map from his office at the New York Public Library, where he was found deceased, before the police or the museum can take possession of it again. And she sets off to figure out both what the map and her father have been hiding for decades.
Right, right, absolutely. So I was drawn in by the fact that it has this underlying current of mystery, but I also appreciated you sharing in your discussion as well that there's some family secrets as well. Now, it centers Nell after she breaks up with her boyfriend, who was also working at the library. Now, I kind of want to go through each character for a bit. So tell us about Nell, who she is as a character, as a person, and just everything before the firing, because she too used to work at the library with her dad.
Yes, she did. Nell is a really interesting character. She's this young woman who she's in her mid 30s by the time the book starts, but her whole life and her greatest passion has been cartography ever since she was an infant. Her father is a giant in the field, and the only person that was more famous than her father was her mother, who passed away when she was a toddler. And so she was born into this family of map scholars, and she has grown up in that world, and it's really everything to her. And so on top of that, on top of it being one of her deepest interests, it also to her feels like one of the only ways or possibilities she has to connect with her father. And so she spends her adolescence and her university and her graduate years thinking that if she can just become as good of a cartographer as her mother and father were, that might be the way that she can finally form a relationship with her father in a way that she's always wanted and get closer to him and get him to open up, and they can be the family that she always wished they could have been without the shadow of her mother's death hanging over them. And so when she gets a job at the New York Public Library, which is where he works, she thinks that this is all finally happening. She has her dream job. She's in the same office as her father, and they're going to become these two brilliant map makers together. But of course, that is not what happens. About 7 years before the start of the novel, Nell ends up discovering a map in a collection of uncatalogued specimens, and she takes it to her father because she's very excited about it, and she thinks that some of the maps in this uncatalogued specimen box might be worth something. And to her surprise, her father ends up dismissing them as just worthless. And the ensuing argument is so bad that he ends up firing her from the New York Public Library and essentially destroying her reputation. So no one else will let her back into the field that she's loved so much and the field that she thought was her only way back to her father. And so she starts the novel really, really lost and kind of shut out of everything that she knows and loves. And then that map that I mentioned that they had a fight over, it's the same map that she finds in his desk after his death. And so she really wonders, first of all, why would you do something so terrible to somebody that you supposedly loved over just a map? And then second of all, if you did that and you thought the map was this worthless, why do you still have it 7 years later?
Right, right, absolutely, because her dad does die in the novel, and we assume that it's from natural causes, but he still has the map. You're right, it's in his desk, and the map happens to be this decades-old gas station. It's a road map of the city of New York as well. But Nell feels the map is related to his death. So obviously readers are going to have to read to kind of get more details there. But I want to jump to Nell asking her ex for help. Because he too, he has a line there in the story. He was also a part of the whole, public shaming and everything that transpired. And he's moved on. He's working for a different company now, but she ropes him in to help her. Tell us about Felix.
Yeah. So Felix was Nell's boyfriend at the time that she had the huge fight with her father at the New York Public Library. They met in their PhD program, and she was the one that got him hired in the same place. And so when she starts to have that really bad fight with her father, Felix jumps in like a good boyfriend, and he tries to defend Nell against Dr. Young, her father. And because Dr. Young is so angry, he ends up firing Felix in that same moment. But in the 7 years between when the two of them get fired and then they meet again at the start of the novel, Felix has landed on his feet a little bit better than Nell. He doesn't carry the Young name. And so he managed to kind of escape the reputational damage that Nell had. And so he's ended up working at a company, sort of like Google. It's a big tech company and they make electronic maps. And so when Nell realizes that she might be in over her head because the secret that the map is hiding is very, very big, she swallows her pride and goes and asks Felix for help because she has felt really responsible and guilty for him being fired. And I don't think she knew until she sees him again 7 years later how well he managed to do for himself afterwards. So she thought his life was ruined the same as hers and that he would never speak to her again and he would just hate her forever. And so she really has to screw up her courage to go find Felix and ask him for his help for the same map that basically ruined both of their young lives.
Right, absolutely. I found that dynamic quite interesting as well. So I'm really curious, Peng, what inspired you to write this story, The Cartographers? What was the spark? Do you have an interest in cartography? Was this something that you happened upon? I mean, what's the backstory for this novel?
Yes, well, I do have an amateur interest in cartography. I think that maps are beautiful and fascinating, but I actually heard a story about, I think it was about 10 years ago, about a real life cartography mystery similar to the one that happens in the book. And that was the spark that really inspired the story because I thought, you open up maps, any map, a map that is unfamiliar to you or a map of even your own neighborhood, and you have this feeling like, if I just keep looking long enough, I might see something that I've never noticed before, no matter how familiar the area is to me. And when I started digging into cartography as an industry, as a field, I realized that actually there are little secrets like this hidden on maps all the time. And if you look hard enough, you really can spot some of them.
Right, absolutely. So, of the characters in the novel, and I know this is a bit hard sometimes for authors, but who is your favorite character or who is the favorite person that you enjoyed writing or discovering as you were writing? But what character in the book was a standout? And it doesn't have to be like the main characters, Daniel, Nell, Felix, or any of them.
It's a great question. Actually, I'm going to say Romy, who is the best friend of Nell's mother and also a very good friend of Nell's father. Yeah, and I like her a lot because she, for me, was really the way into the mystery because I started with Nell and her father and Felix, and I had this map, but I didn't know exactly what the secret was on it or how the mystery was going to play out. And it wasn't until I found Romy that I realized that the mystery didn't start with Nell and Felix. It started some 30 years before that when Romy, Nell's mother, Nell's father, and 4 other friends. So there's a group of 7 friends, brilliant cartographers, and they are just finishing their PhD program about 30 years before the novel starts. And it's that group of 7 friends that discover the map first, this very same map. And they end up discovering what the secret is on it. And it sort of slowly tears that friendship, that friend group apart. So that is where the mystery actually started. And I found that through Romy as she started talking in early drafts and telling me all this history that I hadn't even known and I hadn't planned when I started writing it.
Wow, that's awesome. Yes, I remember Romy. No, you saying that now, it's quite interesting getting that insight that you're discovering things as she came to life on the page. That's pretty cool. Okay, so we're going to shake things up on the show a bit and we're going to play a little game. Are you ready?
I am, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So because the novel, it's entitled The Cartographers, it centers a bunch of cartographers who are also former employees at the New York Public Library. So I'm going to ask you some either or questions and you're going to tell me what map Nell, and I'm going to throw Felix in there as well, what map Nell and Felix would prefer to work on. Are you ready?
Okay, yes, I am.
Awesome. Okay, so, and these are all fictional maps. Would Nell or Felix prefer to work on the map of the Land of Oz from The Wizard of Oz, or would they go for Treasure Island?
Oh, The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would they prefer A Wrinkle in Time or Around the World in 80 Days?
I think Nell would prefer A Wrinkle in Time and Felix would prefer Around the World in 80 Days.
Oh, I like that. Okay. The map of Florin and Gilda from The Princess Bride or map of the kingdoms of Lilliput and, I can never pronounce it, you read things and then say
Yeah, you only know how to read them with your eyes. Yeah.
Blefuscu. Yeah, I think it's Blefuscu from Gulliver's Travels. So Princess Bride or Gulliver's Travels.
Oh, I think it'd be a split again. Nell would go for Princess Bride and Felix would go for Gulliver's Travels.
Gulliver's Travels, right. Okay, awesome. Okay, a map of Middle Earth and Bag End from Lord of the Rings, or a map of Westeros from the Game of Thrones.
Ooh. I think they would both go for Game of Thrones because that map is actually based very loosely on a map of England, right? Yeah, so they would go for that.
Okay, awesome. A map of the 100-Acre Woods from Winnie the Pooh, or map of the River Bank from The Wind in the Willows.
Wind in the Willows.
Wind in the Willows, okay. Narnia from the Chronicles of Narnia, or Aeea from Circe. That was it was a Greek contemporary novel, Circe.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, yes, Circe. Yeah. Nell would go for Narnia and Felix would go for Circe.
Circe, okay. Yeah. Okay. The Voyage of the Pequod map, so the map that the ship was using in Moby Dick, or a map of Dante's Inferno from the Divine Comedy.
Nell would go for Dante's Inferno and Felix would definitely go for the map that was being used by the ship.
Okay, cool. And the last one I have is a map of H.P. Lovecraft's Dreamlands, or a map of Charles Dickens's London.
Nell would go for H.P. Lovecraft and Felix would go for London.
You go for Okay, cool. Thank you so much for playing my game.
Yeah, it was fun. That was very fun.
I was just like, you know what? It's New York Public Library, Cartographers. There are a bunch of maps in books. I think it's pretty cool, actually.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things. If a map has got a book, you open it up and you see it, and I'm like, yes.
Exactly.
So great. Yeah.
There are two things I love: maps of the worlds that were created and family trees for those multi-generational novels.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Family trees are great.
Family trees are great because when I don't have a family tree, I have an index card and I'm making a family tree.
It's a good idea.
That's what I use for my bookmark. So yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get into your writing life a bit, Peng. How long did it take for you to write and pull together the Cartographers?
I think that's a complicated question. So I did calculate it out, and the writing and the revising time when the manuscript was with me, I think it was about 1.5 years. But
Right.
The book actually has come out almost 4 years after my first book. And I think it's because the pandemic. So there were a lot of times where I would finish a draft and then it would end up kind of stuck somewhere in the process, like stuck in production, or my editor had a bunch of other manuscripts ahead. And so we would sometimes be like waiting for a couple of months, which adds to the time. So it's kind of hard to say, because at the same time, even though it only took me 1.5 years to write, I really think that all those breaks, I really needed them in between to let the story leave my head. So then when I got it back with comments, I could look at it fresh and see new ways to fix it rather than just not being able to think about anything but the previous form it had been in.
Right. Absolutely. That makes sense. As previously mentioned in my intro, though, you previously wrote and published the Book of M. You also have the Future Library. How was it similar to or different from writing and publishing the Cartographers? And obviously, I know you just mentioned COVID, but what was like the major difference maybe in your publishing journey or your writing journey?
Well, the writing of the two is very different. I think with the Book of M, it probably took about the same amount of writing time, about 1.5 years, I think, but it just felt a lot faster because with your first book, you have to write the whole thing before you can try to get an agent and then try to sell the book. And so when you are going out with this book, or when your agent is going out with this book to editors, the whole thing is pretty much done. And so even if your editor would like some edits after they buy the book, it's probably not going to change that drastically. Whereas with the Cartographers, we sold the concept to my editor on, I think it was like a 1-page proposal. And so I didn't really have much of anything when the book was already a book, because we had done the book deal for it and we had a deadline. And so that was very interesting, because that was the first time that I was giving unfinished chunks of anything to anyone to look at, rather than just saying, okay, I finally finished the whole book. Here you go. It was really different. I'd say, okay, I have 80 pages. I don't really know if they make any sense, but have a look,
Right. Right, absolutely. What's the most difficult part of your creative process?
I think it is. So I really like writing the first draft
Mhm.
because my first drafts, I don't outline or plot ahead of time. I just find the story through the writing of it. And so my first drafts are really, really messy, very chaotic. They usually don't make any sense. And they're often very different from what the end result ends up being because through the writing of the first draft, I discover what I'm actually trying to write about. And so I love the writing of the first draft, but the hard moment for me is when I finish the first draft and it is just complete nonsense. You know, it's like 500 pages of just nonsense. And I realize that I now have to make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
Yeah.
So we can get it, of course. But looking back, you have the Cartographers, that's out now, the Book of M, that was out before. I need to go find the Future Library because that was new to me.
Oh, it's actually short fiction. It's a novelette. And so it's available online. I think it's available for free, even if you just Google it. Readers can find it for free. And it's about, it was published by Tor.com, which is a branch of Tor, the very big science fiction fantasy publisher. And it's really nice that they release all of their short fiction. You can buy an ebook copy if you want to keep a copy forever, but they also release all of it for free. And so people can just read, all this wonderful fiction whenever they like. It's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. See, I had no idea, and I'm supposed to know these things. Oh, that's great. And I love short fiction.
Oh,
I really,
wonderful.
really do. Yeah,
Awesome.
I love stories. I buy them all the time. It helps to break up my novel reading from time to time, especially when I just want a quick fix. So.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I love them. But yeah, so you had the Book of M, the Future Library. We now have the Cartographers. I mean, if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would you tell her looking back?
Yes, I have thought about that a lot. So what I would tell my young writer self and what I would tell any other writer who's just starting out, that writing a book is so much harder than you think it's going to be. But I mean that in a good way, because I think that for a lot of the world, we are taught to think that if you're good at something, it should be easy. That's how we think of, I don't know, athletes or sometimes even artists. It just seems like if somebody's very talented at something, then it should be easy. And writing a book is never easy, even for very, very skilled or very experienced authors. And so when I was struggling through some of the earliest things that I tried to write, and it was just so hard, I had these feelings of, oh, like maybe it's not meant to be then. Maybe I'm not a writer. Maybe I just love it, but I'm not good enough to do it. And I wish that I had known that actually, no, it's just always that hard. You are doing the right thing, you're going to make it, and nothing is wrong with you or with your process. It's just always this hard. And so I could have taken comfort in that.
Right. That makes sense. But now I'm going to get nosy. Are you writing any other books? I mean, I know for me, I'm going to go find the Future Library, so I'll have that to go read. But for other listeners who are maybe wondering, are there any other books on the way? What can you tell us, Peng?
Yes. So I am about halfway through the first draft of my third novel. So that's very exciting. It's going well. Because I am such a messy first drafter, I can't really tell you what the story is about that specifically yet. But what I can say, I think, so if the Book of M was post-apocalyptic with a little bit of magic thrown in, and then the Cartographers is more of a mystery, this third book is shaping up to feel sort of like a sci-fi thriller.
Ooh, exciting. Yay. Awesome. So we have a book to look forward to.
Yes, yeah.
And if the Cartographers is new, you have the Book of M, and you can join me on the short fiction of the Future Library. But yeah, that's amazing. I'm happy to hear it's going well too.
Yes, yeah. A lot of fun.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now I want to get into your reading life, Peng. We're here to talk about the Cartographers, but I'm curious and I want to know what you're reading. I know my listeners love hearing what our favorite authors are reading. So tell us about the last book that you finished reading that you'd now recommend.
Okay, so here's the problem with, I feel like asking authors this. Do you have this happen where they start recommending books and then they realize that none of them are out quite yet because they're all okay? This is also my problem. I just thought of two really incredible books and then I was like, oh no, they're not out until like August.
No, go for it. Go for it because we will pre-order here.
Okay, great. So then I am extremely excited to recommend a book called Babel by R.F. Kuang. She previously wrote a trilogy called The Poppy War, I think, which is set in a sort of alternate version of China. And Babel is set at Oxford, actually, in the 1800s, I think. And it's about a kind of secret, mysterious department in the languages and literatures department at Oxford, where there are translators there who can do actual magic by translating words from one language into another. It's beautifully written. The characters are wonderful. The magic is really, really interesting because it's all about language. And the book is just, on top of that, so smart and so deep.
Awesome. And the next book on your list?
The next book is called The Measure by Nikki Ehrlich. And that comes out sometime this year. I'm not sure when. I'm about halfway through it, I think. So one day, maybe tomorrow, on the doorstep of every single person in the world who's over the age of 18, there appears a little box. And when everyone opens the box, there's a length of string in it. And the string is a slightly different length for everyone. Some are very, very long. Some are super short. Some are somewhere in the middle. And because everyone in the world has received one of these boxes, scientists are trying to figure out what the significance behind these strings are. And very quickly, they start to realize that the string is the exact measure of the amount of life that you have left.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so, I mean, basically, everything changes overnight because if every adult in the world suddenly knew exactly how much longer they had left to live, I mean, can you imagine the ways in which just everything would change? So it's so fascinating and really, I mean, kind of scary, but kind of amazing. And, yeah, it really makes you think. So,
yes, absolutely. It's one of those, if you knew when you were going to die, what would you do kind of thing.
Oh, just, yeah. I mean, yeah, I can't stop thinking about it.
That's awesome. And what books are you looking forward to reading in the year ahead?
I'm very excited for The Candy House, I think it's called. It's by Jennifer Egan. And I think Emily St. John Mandel's new book comes out in about a week or two.
I think so.
The Sea of Tranquility or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Been waiting for that one. That'll be exciting.
Awesome. We also love indie bookstores here on the show. I ask all our guests, so of course I'm going to ask you to share with our listeners some of your favorite bookstores.
Yes. So my mom lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and I visit her often. And one of my favorite bookstores is here in Arizona. It's called The Poisoned Pen. It started out as a mystery bookstore. I think they only sold mystery, and now they sell everything. And the owner, she's amazing. She knows everything about any book you could ever ask her. I think she used to be a librarian for the Library of Congress here in the US before she's incredible. I love them because they do a lot of mailing and shipping of books, because a lot of times readers would love to have their books autographed by authors, and book tours being what they are, you can't always meet certain authors. But a lot of authors go through the Poison Pen, and she always gets them to sign a ton of books and then is happy to ship those out. And I think she even ships internationally. So it's one of the best places to, if there was a chance that an author was going to pass through, they will probably be going to the Poison Pen because it's such a fixture of the literary community. Yeah. And they also ship internationally. So she's great. And she just really wants everybody to read as much as they can and have a first edition or a signed copy or whatever. She just loves books so much.
Oh, that's amazing. I love hearing that. See, this is why we have to love our indies.
Yes. Yeah.
They're irreplaceable, really.
They are. Yeah.
All right. So getting back to the Cartographers now, I know you've done your job. You've written the book. You've given it to us. I've read it and loved it. I can't wait for more people to read it and to hear their thoughts as well. But in an ideal world, what are you hoping readers might feel? What reactions are you hoping for? Or just maybe some thoughts you're hoping readers might have?
So when I wrote it, what I hope that the feeling that I could evoke in readers is the feeling that I get when I look at a map, which is just this sense of wonder, I guess is the best way to say it. Like when you open up a map, it just feels like an invitation to go explore something or learn something or observe something that you hadn't noticed before. So it's sort of calling to you and inviting you to just kind of marvel at the world that we have. And so I hope that that's my greatest hope, I guess, that feeling that I have when looking at a map is the same feeling that readers might get when they are reading this book about a mystery related to maps.
Right. Absolutely. Peng, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Thank
Thank you so much for tuning in to The Reader's Couch. You can find out more about the show and submit your questions for our guest by visiting our website, thereaderscouch.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Couch is Booked. If you like the show, please subscribe, share, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Next week, I'll be back with new guests, more books, and some fun games we can play. But until then, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.